Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Fully Corked podcast. My name is John. My co host is Charlie, and we've got a good one for you today. Charlie, how's it going?
It's going good. The fans, listeners may notice that if you're watching with video, I'm horribly burnt right now. I won't be taking questions on that, but morale is high. I've got aloe. I'm doing everything I can to get back on track. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Doing even better knowing I'm going to be sipping on some Chardonnay.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. I think part of the reason I may have gotten burnt in the first place was drank enough of this type of thing and thought I was more powerful than the sun, didn't put on any sunblock, and you know, who knows? Maybe I'll make the same mistake again here.
Sunblock be damned. It's time to be drinking.
Yeah.
Hot outside for most of you. And what better than a nice glass of white, crisp Chardonnay to wash it down?
This week we've got the Big Churn. It's Chardonnay 2022 out of California. Described as smooth and rich as fresh churned cream, this full-flavored and sumptuous Chardonnay takes the classic oaky, buttery profile to new heights of perfection. It's a high bar that they put on the back label there. We'll be the judge of that.
Oaky and buttery. Oh
Yeah.
boy. They're hitting all of the notes. Music to my ears on a Chardonnay.
Yeah, I got a pour going right now.
I'm pouring mine too. And as we introduced last week, we are going to give the wine fact of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're sipping Chardonnay, I also think this is the first time we've featured a Chardonnay on the pod. We're going to have our fact or facts here about Chardonnay. So, Charlie, the first one. Where do you think Chardonnay got its origins from?
If I had to throw out a wild guess, I'd say maybe Burgundy region, Eastern France.
Charlie, that is spot on. Well done.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, you put the listeners on there.
Yeah.
And now it is worldwide, but it did get its start in France. They won't stop talking about it. They invented the Chardonnay grape, but here we go. Trying to look up just like a general flavor profile for a Chardonnay. What I found is that it is heavily dependent on how it is stored and aged. And this really has to do with the vessel that it is stored and aged in. You either have oak barrels, which we talk about a lot on this pod, or you have some other different types of aging where it could be steel barrels or something else of that sort, like just kind of different. This is actually technically called oaked or unoaked Chardonnay. An unoaked chard tastes brighter, fruitier, and is closer to a dry white wine such as a Sauv Blanc. But an oaked chard comes in much more full-bodied with a flavor profile such as butter, baking spices, or vanilla. And given this Big Churn is boasting an oaky, buttery profile, I would assume it's aged in a little bit of oak.
And I'm going to tell you right now that is a fact because I've had a couple sips while I'm listening to the facts, trying to absorb knowledge. And they mention it's, rich as fresh churned cream. I think it's velvety, the mouthfeel.
That is a velvety mouthfeel.
And it's just simply the right time to be drinking a little bit of Chardonnay. It's getting so nice. It's like 80 degrees out in Minneapolis today. It's hitting home. It's reminding me of my origins. I think my first time drinking any alcohol was on a patio drinking Chardonnay with my mom. So
that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're coming with a name like Big Churn, you better be boasting a buttery finish on the palate.
Yeah, and it better have a velvety mouthfeel too, or you're gonna get slammed on the reviews on Vivino.
I actually kind of had lower expectations for this wine coming into this pod. This is, upon first or second sip, like not bad.
Yeah, no, I'm liking it. I mean, it's not an expensive, I think it's a $7 bottle. I think the question I have in the back of my head is, have a couple glasses of these and it might not be so pretty the next morning, but it's not bad in the moment.
I do worry about that too. Like, this is one of those wines where you should tread lightly. I saw the alcohol content, 14.5%. This thing is a howitzer packed in a bottle.
And it goes down like really smooth too. Like, I could see myself not even thinking about it and deleting a lot of this bottle quickly.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the nature of a lot of whites, I feel like.
Yeah, the Big Churn delivers haymakers. You heard it here first on the pod. And Charlie, I do kind of want to just pick your brain, like, What type of butter are you tasting here? Just knowing that that has been your expertise in a professional setting.
I would say this isn't pasture raised butter. This is kind of like you're getting your standard rations. Nothing special, but nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is just standard of identity level butter. There's no tricks in this, but it achieves the butter, you know, sensibilities.
And this is a cheaper shard. I mean, I think you can get this for under $10 at Trader Joe's. I'm sure if you go up the ladder to some of the behemoths of the world, like the Rombauer Chardonnays, then you're probably getting some grass-fed cattle,
Yeah.
tasting
Oh
butter
yeah.
with that, I'm sure. But this, for what it's worth, I mean, it's direct, it's playful, and it's honest. A good Chardonnay.
It is. Yeah, that is a good call out. This is It's an honest Chardonnay, and I've met some deceitful shards too. And this one's an honest Thomas.
I mean, I'm thinking the deceitful shards are probably those that are aged in that stainless steel barrel.
Yeah, you don't know what the hell's going on
It's
in that
coming out
stainless
tasting like a
steel.
Sauv Blanc. Like, why the hell would I buy the shard then?
A shard in Sauv Blanc's clothing. You never want that. Well, you might want that, but we don't right now.
We
So,
don't right now. Typically, I would be okay with that, but we don't want that right now.
on first impression here, and I like shard. I don't think this is gonna finish in our like top wines of the however many episodes we're gonna do season one. I wouldn't guess, but we'll see. Maybe it'll open up and kind of come back around, but it's not thrilling me yet, I guess.
Yeah, we can hope that it opens up. I agree. It's an honest shard, but it is not. It's not blowing me away by any means.
One thing before we get into segments and things like that. So we are recording. It is Mother's Day today. And I just wanted to ask John, when he, because this is kind of like a very early memory I have with my mother. So John, I'm going to ask you, when was the first time you started doing bad things as a little kid? Because both of mine, I could tell you roughly my age, and both of these offenses kind of were directed against my mother, who I love dearly. And it's I've learned from this. I've become a better son, but it is. I figure on Mother's Day, might as well share it. And also, I don't know what your mom is up to today. I called my mom on Monday and I said, "Hey, what are we doing for my favorite day of the year?" And she goes, "I'm busy." And so we're actually not. We did nothing today. I called her, obviously, but like we're pushing it off. So I feel it's time to share a little bit of our murky history.
Yeah, well, she probably wanted a nice spa day away from you, Charlie.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
just taking Mother's Day into her own hands.
doing her own thing. It's cool. She's having a good day, so that's all I can ask for.
You clearly haven't wowed her with past brunches or flowers you've
No,
brought her
no,
or
she's
presents you've given her.
no, and that gives me something to think about and reflect on. But does anything come to mind as your first kind of like evil act as a child? Because as a kid, my very first evil act was one of curiosity. It wasn't really like I was trying to do something bad. It's just I did something and I didn't know it was bad. And in that instance, it was going up to my cat who was sleeping and pulling its tail because I was like, "Oh, like that's interesting." My mom sees it, not happy with me. That's the very short one, but that's like kind of just like an evil thing. You go and like you torture your pet who you and your family love.
You give too much love to it.
Yeah, in the form of just yanking its tail as like a brain dead like 4-year-old, 5-year-old. I'll give you a little bit of time to think, but the other
Well, no,
one,
here I
you
can
got
go
it.
actually. I was thinking mine's pretty short, so before you get into your longer form story, I was probably like 3 or 4 when this happened, and as a lot of people that listen to this pod know, I'm a little bit of an artist. I have a
Hmm.
creative bone in my body. I at least love to create, and specifically, I love to draw. And I don't know what happened, but I got into like my mom's like pads. I think that's just the term for them. It's like like what you do for feminine hygiene during
Okay.
that time of the month. Like
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if that's what you. I thought maybe you were referring to like her artistry pads, like something you drawn. But
No,
okay, I
like it's
gotcha.
I didn't really know like a soft way to say that. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I hope the listeners get the gist.
that was delicate.
But something about them is they're kind of like Band-Aids, like they're sticky. and they stick to the wall. And so again, like little 3 or 4-year-old me got into my mom's stash of these things, and I just stuck them all over our house walls.
Oh yeah.
Specifically like this one wall right out near the front entrance. And then I found like, my favorite box of crayons, and I just put a Picasso, maybe more like a Jackson Pollock, up on our wall.
Was the art going on the pads or the wall?
Everything. So the pads were what's it called? Mixed media. So the pads
Nice.
kind of added like that texture to the wall, and then I
Wow.
came in with the color blast, like again Jackson Pollock-esque. Look them up or just read a magazine if you don't know who that is. And it turned out really nice, and it was actually the photo is put in a scrapbook. So clearly I was destined for greatness from that moment on. But yeah, that's kind of a naughty act as a kid.
Yeah, well, kind of, but I think what may dull the punishment that faced you is your parents recognizing this is a kid we're raising that has enough trust in us as the viewer of the art piece that he's willing to go abstract. He's not giving us something simple. He's not doing just realism. He's taking a risk because he believes in our ability to see art. He went mixed media. He went over multiple surfaces, multiple color blends. I feel like that's something that while they wouldn't be thrilled about the location of the art, might say, this was a good job.
That's eloquently put. My parents dared to be interested.
Yeah.
They dared to let me fly, and fly I did.
You got to have space to fail. I've learned this many times. You can't that's the problem with micromanaging anything. Like you got to let people, if they're going to fail, let them fail. That's how they learn. So,
Yep.
and on my end, so I was probably 4 or 5. We had moved to a new house, and my mom, I believe at around that time, had also switched roles at her law firm. And so she was having people over for the first time to her new house. None of them had met me. And I think she was, trying to get to know her team a little bit better, things like that. And I had learned earlier in the week that my mom dyed her hair red. That was unknown to me, and I was a redheaded kid. And so that was like kind of bubbling around in my mind. And so then the people get to the door, and my mom says, hey, meet Charlie. This is my son. And unprompted, for no reason at all, I say to the entire collection of people who have arrived at our home within the first 5 minutes of them getting there, my mom dyes her hair and my hair is real.
No.
Yeah, just like truly malicious and evil. And I remember my mom looked at me, and I think that's, also, so it's right as I started committing evil acts, but at the same time, it was also the first time I felt like real fear, because the way my mom looked at me when I said that was, it scared me. I knew something was not right about what I said immediately after that. Because as a kid, I guess you don't really know. I don't know why I would have wanted to share that other than just to get credit for being a real redhead. But
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
yeah, so that was, as you would imagine, horribly received. But Mom, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. Love you. Happy Mother's Day. Yada yada. I'll never do it again. But yeah, it was just top of mind with Mother's Day going on. But yeah, was a very, very bad little kid at some point.
So were you telling multiple people at this party, or was it like a one and done?
It was like everybody is at the door taking their shoes off. Like everybody had arrived. And she goes to like the group, meet Charlie. And that's what I say to the entire group.
Did you get a laugh?
I don't totally remember. I have to imagine, like, if I was in their shoes, I don't think you can laugh at that. I think that's kind of like an awkward, kind of silence, pretend it didn't happen type thing.
A room full of lawyers is an intimidating crowd too for your stage.
Yeah, and I did not come out with a crowd pleaser out of the gate. That's for sure. I gave him something that was tricky to deal with. I mean, that's tough.
Yeah, a complicated joke.
Yeah, and just like you, when you were a little boy, I trusted my audience. I trusted that they could handle the nuance of what I was bringing to them, and I was wrong. And I suppose I went a little edgier. It was just kind of like a personal attack on my mom in front of her.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a refined sense of humor to get your head around that one. But
yeah, Yeah, and I think perhaps in the delivery, I might have been a little too blunt, like, a little too on the head with it. I don't know. Uh, yeah.
Happy Mother's Day, or happy, I guess, belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there listening to this podcast. You are all loved. You are all appreciated. You all rock in your own way.
Yep. But none of you rock as much as my mom, but keep trying. Okay, yeah, let's move on. So, segment 1, we did a fan Q&A the other day, opened up the DMs for, any sort of advice somebody, would want us to answer. And so our first question was, how do I ask my coworkers to stop asking to hang out with me outside of work without being rude? So the syntax there is a little strange, but essentially, how do I get out of hanging out with my coworkers without being perceived as a jackass? I kind of have a devil on the shoulder response to this. Do you have an actual answer to this?
No, I don't. I have
Okay,
nothing.
so I'll go first then. I think you should hang out with them outside of work because I feel like when you get, I guess I don't know the age of the person who submitted this question, but there's something about, like, it's good to have camaraderie in the office, and that's largely built by seeing people out of the office, even if it's, would you rather go home and have an extra hour like laying in bed than going and having a couple drinks with your coworker? Oftentimes yes, but I just think it's probably the right thing to do. Build the rapport, and then the other thing that's really good about that is once you figure out who your buddies are in the office, you can kind of do the thing where if you're in a meeting, somebody says something funny, you shoot them a look, and then you're best friends from there on in. So I say, I have no advice on how to not do it, but I would just do it.
That's an extremely diplomatic response, Charlie. I think our listeners looking for a little more here. It sounds
Yeah.
like this person has been hanging out with their coworkers and realizes it sucks. I get what you're saying from like a call it first 6 months on the job, but like end of the day, we're all just working for a paycheck, right? Like what is really the point of hanging out with people outside of work hours? Like I didn't hire these people to be my friends, and a lot of them were just there when I got there. So I get it, and I really empathize with our fan here. Um I think you got to just start getting involved. I mean, you got to have
Oh,
something that's going on, right? Like,
isn't an
and I don't even
excuse.
care if it's fake, but like, start working on a project, and you can have it as vague as you want. But like, maybe you're writing a book, maybe you're working on your next Jackson Pollock, right? Like, get some form of excuse going where your coworkers know that, like, oh, X is just unable to make it because they're crushing their poetry slam that they're going to present.
Yeah, and I would say that it almost doesn't even, it could just be a hobby too. I mean, if you say, like, let's say the happy hour that you get invited to every week is on Thursdays, and you say one Thursday, I'm climbing with my friends, or playing tennis, or I'm XYZ, you're in any league. That's an excuse you can use 100 times in a row, and it never loses its legitimacy. Plus, I think you back out of something once, twice, you just stop getting the invite anyway. So, like,
Yeah.
that's probably, if you are interested in minimizing coworker interaction, I suppose that's the way.
Probably marathon training too. Again, like maybe you actually have to run a marathon, but you could always claim injury. Pick one that's like way out there in the distance, like the 2025 Boston Marathon, and then
The
just,
problem with that though is you kind of gotta, like, at some point you gotta do it. You know what I mean? Like the marathon, pick an easier thing. I mean, like, I don't know. With mine coming up, I'm so excited to not be running anymore that it's,
mm,
some days I wake up and wish I didn't sign up for it. But
maybe a 10,000 piece puzzle.
yeah. I think some people might question the urgency of you having to get back to your 10,000 piece puzzle. But I like it as an idea. Uh, yeah.
But there you go. I think moral of the story is the excuses will write themselves. You just have to get involved. Again, you can lie about it, or you could just get involved. Either or. Maybe the lying's a little harder on the moral compass, but it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. You got to stop hanging out with these people. All right, moving on to fan question number 2. I guess this is technically our advice section, so,
Yep.
take these with a grain of salt. As always, none of this is financial advice,
Mhm.
and yeah, here we go. How would you help a friend get into wine? So I put some thought into this, and I think the perfect gateway drug here is Wine Wednesday.
Mhm.
Super fun. It has a ring to it. It's what's that, an alliteration? Wine Wednesday. That's just
Yeah,
already pretty
it's
damn fun.
playful.
Exactly. And you invite them over and you just have a wine waiting for them. Hopefully one that we've reviewed on the pod. You can give it your own spin on it. You could even watch the pod with this friend, like really start to
That would
build.
be a really
But
cool way to get into wine, for us, at
that
least. Yeah, that would mean a lot to us. Yeah.
You should do the Wine Wednesday, but I would say pair it with, like, a fun TV show or series. Like, I mean, really, like, when I was doing a lot of Wine Wednesdays, this was a few years back, like, during COVID, but, like, we would watch like, my girlfriend and I and then some friends, we'd watch The Bachelor, and we'd make, like, a whole bracket. We'd, like, bet on all the contestants. There was, like, kind of like a prize on the line. It wasn't money, but, like, the winner had an entire night out bought for them, like dinner, drinks, restaurant of their choice, whatever. So, not an insignificant prize. And so it got really competitive, but without fail, we were drinking wine, and that was like really fun. And it just kind of like made it a habit. A lot of these people that maybe hadn't ever considered drinking wine when they were like hanging out started. And it's just like an easier hang. Like, I feel like if you pull out like a seltzer, even like that's more of a party mode,
Yeah.
whereas wine, you just go with a big, heavy cab and you put yourself, relaxation mode for the night. You're not partying, you're not drinking a spirit where you're just like feeling like you're going to be just hungover as hell the next
Yeah,
day.
you're not totally going for it. You're just, helps you loosen up. I would say I don't know why this comes to mind other than I drank a lot of wine when I was watching this TV show, so it kinda lines up with your advice, John. White Lotus on Netflix, super fun show to watch once you've had a couple glasses of wine.
Mm.
But I think I'd echo everything John said, and also dinner party, more effort, but same thing. Like that lends itself so much to wine consumption to me, as opposed to unless you went like a cocktail route. But I feel like you rarely have a dinner party where everybody's having a hams and a Montucky cold snack. Like that is wine time, I would say, for a dinner party.
Here's one where it's actually low effort, but like cheese legitimately tastes better when you eat it with wine. So just bring a cheese plate. And like there's an actual fun component where you can put a little bit of cheese in your mouth, chew it a little bit, keep it in your mouth, and then take a sip of wine and then swallow, and then the cheese tastes different. And it's actually like really fun. And each cheese tastes a little different with the wine you're tasting. So you could kind of gamify it. So there are ways where like even if you have a friend that doesn't like wine, you can like make it more interesting to them than just drinking a new type of alcohol.
Yeah, and I suppose my last two thoughts here. One is it's all I mean, if somebody is just reluctant about it, or not reluctant, but not knowledgeable on it, I'd say just keep it in front of them too. They're gonna try wine if there's wine in front of them all the time. And then the other one, when you mentioned games, like if you go scientific with it, like if you're just trying to be like, what is going on in this wine? Like what we do, what we attempt to do as we review these wines, that's been fun for me. Not to say it's been always very like fruitful in terms of me getting to the bottom of what's going on in a wine, but it's a fun way to attack wine too. Like really try and get into the mind of a sommelier and determine, dryness, what it would pair well with, things like that. So there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with wine.
Yeah, you could also go for the cool factor, and you could put on like aviators. You could get a cigarette in your mouth, and you could just be waiting at your door for your friend with a bottle in hand, and
Yeah.
they're gonna go, "Damn."
Preferably a hand rolled cigarette too, not just out of a pack. All right, our last question here. Men always leave cabinet doors open and toilet seats up. What can be done to make them stop? It's a very tricky question.
Why is this tricky,
Just
Charlie? Men
because,
just need to do
yeah,
better.
I agree, but the actual question portion of it, what can be done to make them stop? That's the trick, because we can all agree it's kind of a widespread oversight of men to do this, and I am not, innocent in this. Like, I've done, I live alone, but at the same time, like, I know I've been caught doing these things before. Um, so I don't know. I mean,
This
I
feels almost
suppose all
targeted
men
at you,
should
Charlie.
practice a higher level of mindfulness. Like, that's real. Like, do you have a way? Do you have something that comes top of mind? I mean, like, be better is like one thing, but you could say that about so many issues out there that, like, yeah, be better, but people aren't going to be like, how do you make them stop? What
Yeah,
makes
I
them
mean, I
stop?
think it's maybe a degree of shaming
Yeah. Oh,
men,
shame.
and I would say like cabinet doors. uh, It's neither here nor there for me. Like I feel like that is a frustrating annoyance, but it's not as criminal as leaving a toilet seat up. Like if you're at a house where like a girl is, like either you're at a party or anything, and you leave that toilet seat up, like girls like don't always look and they can like fall in, or so I've heard. Like it's like a really bad look as a man to like not understand that. And so it's just like proper etiquette to put it down after you go to the bathroom. And it's kind of like doing the absolute bare
And I
minimum.
think, to piggyback on like the shame route. So really, I mean, when I was living with my parents, this was a conversation my mom and I had a handful of times. And I think the most effective one was, whenever it happens, I'm hearing something about it. Like, she's going to come tell
Mm.
me, come up here and look at this. What do you think I'm about to show you up here? And it's a toilet seat that's up. And why did this happen again? Like, what happened here? Did you have to speed off afterwards? Like, so I think the shame, and also just repeat. If somebody's going to get caught 100 times doing something they shouldn't do, and they see punishment every time, they're going to stop doing it. They don't want to have that unpleasant interaction. They'll start putting the toilet seat down. They'll start closing cabinets.
Charlie, I'll raise you this scenario.
Okay.
It's New Year's
Oh
Eve.
yeah.
It's a night out. You see a cutie in the corner. You're kind of targeting her as a potential New Year's
Okay.
kiss option. But oh man, you've had one too many glasses of Chard that night, and you got to use the
Okay.
bathroom. You run in there and you flip that seat up and you do your business. You leave. You notice that she's in line. She's actually waiting at the door. This is a house party, so it's communal bathroom.
Okay.
You talk her up. She's got like a twinkle in her eye. She's got that cute smile that you just love.
Yeah.
And you go, "I'll wait right here." Well, she never comes out.
Because she's trapped. She fell in.
She's trapped. She sat into that toilet and she can't get out, and she's like mortifyingly embarrassed, and she knows you are the reason for this.
Yeah.
You've done this to her.
That
That could happen.
it absolutely could. It could happen, but not to me, because I've got far too much. I'll bring a level of care to that situation where that's not going to happen.
That's what you think, but if you don't practice it
Well,
day
and I
in, day
suppose you
out,
did say I had one too many glasses of Shard, and so anything can happen at that point. I guess, to summarize, and that's good for me. It's something that can kind of burn into my memory, and thought process, to prevent me from doing it. But I'd say, for people at large, shame and remind them all the time that they are a terrible person. All right, so we will now move to a new segment, and this one is just it's just fun. Simple pleasures. Why not? We all love them. Let's talk about it.
let's talk about it. First one, I'm just going to lead right out of the gate here. This one's a little bit of an easy one. A lot of people will agree with me. A perfect handshake. The one where your hand just like fits in perfectly. You do all the motions correctly. Charlie, you get what I'm saying. Like a good handshake just feels amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think it puts you, when executed to perfection, you feel like you're absolutely on the same wavelength as that person. It's a good bonding moment. Because if somebody really botches a handshake, or I've done this many times, I've literally done this in the last week, where Um, you're not really sure exactly where you lie with somebody, so you're between a handshake and a hug, and it's super like that's like the evil
Yeah.
cousin of this simple pleasure is like mistaking. This would be a simple displeasure is having to guess between the handshake and the hug and guessing wrong. It's just bad.
As far as like a perfect handshake's amazing, like there's also some really bad handshakes out there. The one that everybody hates is the limp fish.
Yeah.
You wonder, like, when it's a peer doing it to you, you kind of wonder, like, why, right? But the one that I've actually really started struggling with lately is the male that has too firm of a
Yep.
handshake,
They're trying to alpha you. They're trying to big man you.
but in like a way that is just it's almost humiliating to them. It's like I can feel you crushing my hand, and like we're peers. At least like I think of us as peers. Like it's kind of like chill a little bit. Like I will always give a firm handshake. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like when somebody goes the extra mile to like make their presence known. I always think it's kind of weird. Like I've never been like, oh, this guy just like alpha dominated me. Like I'm kind of like this guy's a joke.
Yeah. I'm trying to think back to my firm handshakes. I think or too firm because a firm handshake is good. Honestly, I feel like it's mostly been young people, like people my age or maybe even younger, like really I think getting over their skis and just too excited. And then they crush your hand or try and crush your hand. Nobody can really crush your hand. Okay. Like,
No,
and so for somebody to come in and try and squeeze you super hard on a handshake, it's kind of it's a worthless pursuit. I don't know what people are getting out of that. Um, but yeah, no, it's not good. Has this happened to you recently?
yeah, just I don't know. Like I'll be at like work events or happy hours, things like that, where you're just kind of meeting randos every once in a while, and it'll be like I'll go up to like a group of like call it like a girl and like three dudes, and the girl and two of the three guys are just a normal handshake, like it makes sense, whatever. And then you get like this one like hardo, and this happens a lot that just like comes in with like a crushing blow to the hand.
Yeah,
And
you can crush some people's hands.
I just wonder like what's going through that person's head because I don't know if it's overzealous. Like to me, it almost seems controlled and pointed, and I'm just like,
Yeah, what are you doing? But so actually to bring it back to positivity, what do you think of this type of handshake? Somebody goes in, you do the handshake. Your right hand meets their right hand. Then their left hand goes to your bicep. They kind of go up the arm and give you like the arm pat with the handshake. I like it. I like it.
that's supposed to be another mode of
Really?
domination.
I'm being dominated
Yeah,
when
the
this
person
happens?
patting you is trying to dominate you, so I'm glad you
Oof.
like it. You might not like it so much now,
Well, I
but
didn't think it was like a Sigma play. I just figured I thought it was just a more friendly way to give a handshake. What if they're like crushing my hand as they go up to the bicep? That's double domination.
that's double domination, yeah.
I met a really pleasant person who did this to me, and now I'm starting to think about my interactions with this person, and I might have been just getting dominated the whole time, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm unhappy you told me this. That could have been one of my simple pleasures, and now it's a simple displeasure.
It's
Um,
better though, right?
I guess, but this was a little ignorance is bliss for me. I mean, this guy dominated me. The I'm sweating again. Um, so I'll go to my first simple pleasure here. You'll see a theme of my simple pleasures as I move through a few of them. But really, I think my favorite simple pleasure that happens on a pretty regular basis is when I wake up in the middle of the night in the work week, and I'm thinking when I look at my phone, it's going to be 6:45. Like I'm only going to have 15 minutes to go back to sleep before I need to get up and like get ready to work. But
Mhm.
if I look at my phone and it's like 2 a.m. and I'm like, oh my God, I have 5 more hours. Let's go. It's such a good feeling. It's like when class gets canceled. It's similar to anything where you're just getting a lot of time back and it feels
Yeah.
awesome every time.
I love that feeling. I'm happy you brought that one up. That also like what would you say like the cutoff is? Cause like I'm not always thrilled when I'm waking up at like 5:30, I guess.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about when you're getting back hours and hours. Cause
Oh,
because the first thought you have when you wake up in that scenario is this is gonna be like every other day when I wake up before my alarm, and it's gonna be 15 to 20 minutes. And then you're like,
yeah.
if that is true, I'm fucked because I'm exhausted right now. But then you see you have, 4 hours, 5 hours to go, and it's awesome. The time it bites you is obviously if you can't get back to sleep, but I really like that it's not a place where I usually have trouble.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. The counter to all of these is just putting yourself in hell when you wake up like 3 minutes before your alarm
Yeah.
and you're just like, "No."
Although, I mean, really okay, so this is a good time to have this conversation. Are you somebody who snoozes your alarm?
I never use the snooze button, but I will set multiple alarms. So kind of a snooze, but like those minutes I'm giving myself are just inconsequential.
They totally are, but I am somebody who loves to snooze if I can. Like if it's not going to like break my entire schedule, I would almost rather snooze it for 30 minutes than get that extra 30 minutes of sleep because like the feeling of drifting back into sleep when you kind of know you shouldn't is like so rewarding. Like it's up
I
there with
know.
anything
It's
else.
and science says never do that.
Yeah.
Science says you should just try to rip all the way to your alarm and just get up, but
And
like
sometimes science is a liar sometimes because yeah, sure you shouldn't do it because it's bad for your circadian rhythm, but in terms of just joy, achieving joy in a given day, that is one of the feelings that's right up there. Although as I mentioned in a previous pod, I've gotten into trouble with this where if I'm with other people, multiple alarms is not something, if they are not your alarms, I don't want to hear someone else's alarms. And when I set like
yeah.
25 alarms, it's not well received. So
Yeah. It's kind of funny, like, when we lived together in college, our sophomore year, we had beds, like, what,
3 feet max.
2, 3 feet away from each
Yeah.
other?
Very intimate.
I don't remember how many alarms I set, but luckily, like, our early mornings, do you remember we had finance
Yeah. Finance at
together?
8 a.m., right?
It was so early, and, like, people that are a little removed from college that are listening, like, 8 AM in college is like you can't even conceptualize how early that is. Like I think my average bedtime in college was like 2 or 3 in the morning,
Yeah.
right? Like you are just cooked when you wake up at 8 AM,
Yeah. Yeah, we had the joy of our alarm clock was often just anyone on earth stumbling into our room that wasn't locked.
slamming through our unlocked door.
Yeah. So we didn't need to worry about that too much. But yeah, shout out Mark LaPlante. I'm sure he's still doing his thing at Madison, Granger Hall.
Our finance professor, absolute legend. Small side note on that. I was so scared in that class. Like I don't know why, but I just didn't get the textbook and I had just like found like an older textbook that like none of the problems were like the ones that like the homeworks assigned, like
Yeah.
all the
It was all
problems were new and
wrong.
stuff. And I was like always trying to take like copious notes, but like it's 8 in the morning, I'm tired. And this guy, Mark LaPlante, would just cold call on anybody in the lecture hall.
Mhm.
And mind you, it's like 150 people in
Yeah,
there
huge
probably.
lecture. He called on you a lot. I
He would
remember this.
find me in the stands, but you know
I know
why?
why. I could tell
Well,
you why.
it's your
It's yeah,
fault.
so this comes back to my broken neck. I at the time, so I'm wearing a neck brace. I'm bringing like a wooden French painter's easel to class because I couldn't crane my head down. And so here's something that Mark LaPlante probably couldn't do. Like, imagine when he's trying to select who he's going to cold call, you either pick somebody who's not paying attention or somebody who's like really sticking out in the crowd. And I was both in that situation where but you can't point at me and say you redhead with the neck brace. You cannot do that because it's just murky. You don't want to go there. And so I think what would happen is he couldn't stop seeing me in the crowd. And then John, I was always sitting next to John, so he points at John and said instead and has him participate.
Sadly, like without fail, I was woefully unprepared. And I would sit with Charlie and then this girl and like we were kind of like a crew of 3 and it got so bad by like the 3rd or 4th time he would call on me like they both you and her would be like trying to whisper the
Yeah.
answer to me in my ear.
Yeah.
And then without a doubt like something would just be puked out of my mouth and he'd be like, That's an interesting
Any
thought.
other thoughts out there in the crowd? Like, open it back up.
Yeah, and then he'd go, "And let's just use this as a learning
Yeah.
situation here."
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was a good teacher, honestly. Good.
He was a good teacher, not one of my prouder, like, academic moments, but
Yeah, that entire semester was not a part of my proudest academic moments. I mean, lugging around an easel and a neck brace, you just can't help. It's, I mean, it's like puppy dogging up and down the aisle on an airplane. You feel like an ass. Like, let me tell you this, and it's probably not a surprise. Most people in a neck brace got there due to an unfortunate situation that was maybe out of their control. Mine was the exact opposite. Totally did it to myself, did it in the most jackass fashion. And so it's impossible to walk around in a neck brace and not feel like an asshole. Because the question you get, other than like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, like the next words every time are, what happened? And then you have to shamefully go, well, I was really drunk and I dove into a 4 foot deep pool and I'm lucky I can walk. And it's just like
oh
you
my
feel
god.
like such a jackass, and rightfully so. I remember, I think, I guess I wasn't ever really like complaining about that to my dad, but he was. I'm pretty sure he just said to me, this will be a good character builder for you doing doing this type of shit. It's like, yeah, it is. Like, I
Yeah.
got to pay the price. I mean, all in, I did get very lucky. So
Yeah, you did. And, speaking of lucky, let's move on to the next. I think, Charlie, we probably have time for just one more of mine and one more of yours.
okay,
From our college days, I know you're gonna agree with me on this, a full tray of
hmm
ice. Like, when that ice maker does that thing that we
yeah,
like
it's
so
just
much.
buzzing and humming. It's the one noise in the middle of the night that I am actually more happy to hear, like it existing. Like if you're in your apartment, let's say you're in college, you move into your new place, and you're going, what the hell is that buzzing in the middle of the night? And like these crinkling, and it's just the ice maker going crazy all night long. That
Yeah.
that becomes something that soothes me to sleep, because I know when I get up in the morning, I'm going to have an ice cold glass of water, which is the best thing to have right away.
With as much ice as you want. I mean, seriously, like, when you open up the freezer and you just have this mound of freshly made ice and you can almost get a little picky.
Yeah.
Like, you can kinda start throwing out the defected ones,
Yeah.
the slightly freezer burned ones, like, you just got those, like, crisp crème de la crème, big, beefy, bold ice cubes.
It is a great feeling. I mean, and on the flip side of that, not having ice when you want ice is miserable. I mean, if it's cocktails, if it's just drinking water, like I want all water I drink at all times to have a fair amount of ice in it. Because it just enhances that refreshment factor. And so it's really disappointing. Like right now, my current apartment, I don't have an ice maker. I have 3 trays that I, like, diligently maintain a little bucket that's full of ice at all times, but it's one too many steps, I'll get over it. But when I am a bad boy and I've had a long weekend that's involved a lot of ice and I haven't been diligent about reloading it, it's a bad, bad feeling to run out of ice. If you have to sit and wait for ice to be created, you're in a bad place.
That's not how you wanna start your week.
No.
Oh my
Oh, no,
gosh.
not at all. So for my last simple pleasure,
If you can't think of any, I can give you my last one.
yeah, give me your last one.
The final simple pleasure, clean bed
Hmm.
sheets. What are your thoughts, Charlie?
I agree. I like it particularly if you're doing the laundry during the day, like into the night almost, so that they're warm when you get into them too. And this is kind of the cousin of that, but you ever throw your towel into the dryer when you're in the shower, then you get out of the shower and have like a super warm towel?
I actually haven't
You
tried
should
that. I kinda almost didn't realize I could do that every time.
Mhm, mhm. It's one more step, but it does hit. It's nice.
Ama
All right, I got a bed question for you. Um,
Yeah.
so I make my bed like I imagine most other people do, which involves tucking that bottom sheet that's below your comforter under the mattress, right? To achieve like the
Yeah.
tuck, like your classic made bed situation. And this is true of every hotel I've been in. Every place does this. This is standard practice. But do you leave the sheet like that because religiously I do not. I will pull it out of its tucked position so that I can roll the sheet under my heels and kind of like cocoon myself in the sheets.
Oh, I do the opposite, but I also pull it out of the position, but I like having, like, kind of almost like a leg out from under the sheets. It's the exact opposite, like, instead of cocooning, I like to, like
Have like some like draft coming through.
yeah,
All
like, I
right.
can regulate my
No, I
temp,
like
you
that
know?
too.
You're just cooking yourself. A cocoon?
Yeah, but the
Like, what if it's
cocoon,
what if it's warm in the room?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe then you shed the comforter layer, but there's something about like I will never go to sleep in socks, but I can't have my feet exposed when I'm sleeping. You know, if it's like fucking scalding hot, yeah, I don't want to be in the cocoon, but okay, I got another sleeping question. I don't know how we're doing on time right now, but
We're fine.
what is your most frequent sleeping position? Because I've been told mine is like I think it's what you're supposed to do, but I feel like most people are like, "You're weird for sleeping." I just sleep on my back, like, you know, how you would see it in like a bed commercial. That's how I sleep. Because if I do the thing where I think it's really comfy to weave your arm under the pillow, like that's
Yeah.
super comfy, but then my shoulder is destroyed the next day. And like, so I can't do that. Anything where I'm like twisting around my legs or hips or not just lying flat, I I don't feel good the next day, so I sleep on my back.
Do you fall asleep on your back?
Yeah,
Wow.
but here's the exception though, is if I'm on the couch, I'm doing all sorts of weird shit. And I slept twice on the couch this weekend. 2 times, 2 out of 2. One of them was not my couch. It was a friend of the podcast couch.
I always end up on my back, but the my preferred way to fall asleep is I put a pillow in between my legs, so my bony ass knees don't knock on each other.
If I'm being a bad boy and I'm not attempting to go right to my back, I have a body pillow where I'll go through the knees like you're talking about and also like my arms around the top of it, which like really results in a disastrous sleep once it happens, but like there is something nice about that. There's something nice about having not having your knees blast into each other too. Okay, this is another just bedtime tangent, but okay, here's something somebody told me like 4 months ago and it has not left my mind one time brushing my teeth in the last 4 months. So this person tells me they brush their teeth, I brush my teeth, and then I go and I get some water and I drink some water like immediately after going to bed, you know, like I want to be hydrated. And they say you shouldn't do that because if you drink water right after you brush your teeth, you're like washing away the protective because you know you'll see in like teeth brushing or like toothpaste commercials that is something that they kind of do. I don't maybe that's not true. I'm not sure, but when I heard that it rattled me because I'm like every single time before I go to sleep I brush my teeth, I drink a shitload of water right before I go to bed, and then I go to sleep. But then now I have in the back of my head all the time, drink your water before you brush your teeth, which I don't like.
I'm gonna have to look into that one. I love a nice glass of water after brushing my teeth, but Charlie, it would make sense that the commercials are showing that you should drink water after brushing your teeth because
That's how they get you.
get you to keep coming back to them, right? Like they want you to erode your enamel.
Yeah.
Not so much that your teeth look like shit, but just enough that you have to keep buying their
And
paste.
they're premium paste. Like when you wash away enough of their shit, and then you got yellow teeth, so you got to upgrade to like the whitening pro. You want to volunteer to the listeners what your preferred toothpaste brand is?
I don't have one.
Really?
Nope. What's yours?
I have two. I like Sensodyne for sensitive teeth and gums, and and the whitening. All of mine, I always do whitening. And then I also like Parodontax, which is the same thing. It's like just like a very like sensitive toothpaste.
We'll end here, and I will offer to the viewers the next time you have a big, bold cab or one of those nice dry Pinots and you just got red juice all over your teeth, try Sensodyne. It's sensible.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Sensodyne, please reach out to us at our email and we'll have a conversation. But Thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you again next week. And also, one last shout out to all the mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day. We love you, and we'll talk to you again next week.
If you enjoyed this episode, please drop a rating, give us 5 stars. We love it. Thumbs up if you're on YouTube. And yeah, just a few more shameless plugs, but please go find us on YouTube, follow us, subscribe. We're there. Instagram, we're there. Interact with us. We love interaction. We honestly just want more and more. Share us with your friends. This has been a lot of fun for us, and you guys are the people that keep us going here. We're on TikTok. Come find us there as well. And then obviously on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And yeah, this has been another fun episode, Charlie. And to all the listeners, we'll see you next week.
All right.